A theory X type of approach would be, if you don't sit still, you're going to get push-ups. But a theory Y mindset instructor will try to use something like, when you do that, you're going to have children who want to be more responsible, who are more confident. So my challenge for you this week is after losing one of my very best black belts, because I gave him a harsh punishment for excessively throwing the dodgeball at another kid, I started to study child development and figure out what I could have done better. Now, this was in the 90s. So back then we didn't have the internet to Google and do all of this type of research. We actually had to go to the library. And when I went to the library, I was trying to find books and resources on leadership in children. And there was not a lot of information available at the time. But I did stumble across this corporate psychologist who specialized in corporate leadership, and his name was Dr. Douglas McGregor. And he wrote a book in the 1960s that addressed different types of mindsets or approaches to employers in the corporate field. And what he discovered was that there were these two types of theories when it came to corporate leadership. Theory X, which is a compliant-based leadership style, and a theory Y, which is more of a encouraging, empowering, motivational leadership style. Now, theory X type of corporate leaders, they felt like employees disliked work, needed strict supervision, threats, coercion, and punishment in order to meet expectations, and that they needed micromanagement and rigid structures in order for them to maintain control. And the results that Dr. Douglas McGregor discovered with this type of leadership style is that employees tended to have low morale, lack of innovation, and much higher turnovers in their businesses. At the same time, the theory Y type of corporate leaders, the leaders who believed in a more empowering, motivational type of leadership, believed that their team members were capable, ambitious, and eager to take initiative, that they fostered this collaborative and trust-based type of relationship, and they encouraged creativity and innovation and problem solving. And those types of businesses tended to have higher engagement, greater innovation, and stronger retention within their business. To give you an example of a theory X type of leadership in the corporate world, it would be something like, if you don't get your report to me by Friday, you won't get your bonus. If you don't meet your quota by the end of the month, you're not getting that promotion. If you don't meet your quota for several months in a row, you will lose your job. So that was more of a compliant-based leadership style. At the exact same time, another comparison of a theory Y, which is an empowering, motivational leadership style, would be something like, if you get your report to me on Friday, you're going to get that bonus. If you meet your quota by the end of the month, you'll get a promotion. If you continue to meet your quota, then you have job security. So you can see both ways were likely effective to get the job done. However, the theory X type of leadership style tended to, again, as I mentioned, have lower morale, lack of innovation, and higher turnover, whereas the encouraging motivational style tended to have employees that had higher engagement, greater innovation, and much stronger retention with them in the business. So when I studied this book, or I read this book, it made me realize that the way that I was taught as a martial arts instructor in the 1990s to help build behavior with children was more of this theory X type of leadership approach. It's building behavior by fear. Again, the situation that I have explained in previous podcasts about giving my black belt Chris, sitting him in push-up position because of his behavior, I ended up losing him. He had this lack of morale. He decided to quit. And I never wanted to make that mistake again. So what I started to do is adopt that theory Y mindset, the theory of building behavior by desire, through encouragement and motivation. So if we think about parents, teachers, and coaches who have that theory X type of mindset of building behavior by fear, that compliant-based leadership style, they believe that kids need strict rules and consequences in order to behave. They also assume that kids won't listen unless they fear punishment. They also focus more on the mistakes and failures rather than the progress. For example, if you don't finish your homework, then you don't get any time on your device tonight. Don't interrupt me or you're going to get in timeout. If you don't sit still, like in a martial arts environment, these are old school martial arts styles. If you don't sit still, then you're going to get push-ups, right? And that type of example or that type of leadership style is going to tend to generate children who are more rebellious and resistant to the leadership. They're going to be more fearful of making mistakes, and they're going to be less motivated. Now, at the exact same time, parents, teachers, and coaches who adopt the theory why mindset through encouragement and motivation and want to build behavior by desire, they view children as capable and eager to grow. They foster an environment of trust, encouragement, and open communication. And they praise effort, progress, and problem solving more so than all of the mistakes that they make. So, for example, when you finish your homework, you get time on your device. If a child is interrupting you, try to use a redirection strategy. One of the examples that I always use when I'm training martial arts instructors are the example in like your early elementary class, and you're saying, okay, kids, let's see you stand strong like a dinosaur. And one kid interrupts and says, dinosaur, well, I have dinosaur toys at home. Well, a theory X mindset might look at the kid for interrupting and say, go in timeout because you interrupted me. But a theory Y type of instructor using encouragement and motivation may say, oh, really? What's your favorite dinosaur? T-Rex? Great. Now let me see you stand really strong like that T-Rex. So that redirection builds the behavior by desire versus putting them in timeout for interrupting, which builds behavior by fear. Another example is if a child is sitting I'll always try to reference martial arts classes because that's where my expertise comes, but you can utilize this information if you're a parent, teacher, or coach in any other type of environment. But an example where you have a student in class who's continually, when they're sitting down, they're wiggling, they're spinning around. A theory X type of approach would be, if you don't sit still, you're going to get push-ups, the mistake that I made in the past. But a theory Y mindset instructor will try to use something like modeling, prompting, or catching. So, for example, modeling. So looking at Johnny and he's not sitting very still and saying, hey, Johnny, do you see how Monica is sitting really good? Can you sit just like her? That would be modeling. Prompting may be something like, hey, Johnny, when I say go, I want you to sit just like a black belt. Ready, set, go. Now have all the class look at Johnny. See how Johnny's sitting like a black belt? Everybody, let's give him a hand. Again, building behavior by desire. Another strategy would be knowing that Johnny tends to wiggle in class is always catching him when he is showing the desired behavior. When you do that, you're going to have children who want to be more responsible, who are more confident, and who are more motivated because you're building behavior by desire versus that behavior by fear. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not about avoiding theory X approaches altogether. Especially this type of approach should be applied if a child is constantly struggling with poor behavior choices, especially after you're utilizing theory Y type of leadership, right? Or you may need to use the theory X approach every so often just to make sure that there's a sense of structure in your classes. But the idea, the concept of focusing more on a theory Y leadership approach versus a theory X approach is going to lead your students into, as I mentioned, being more responsible, being more confident, and being more motivated because they want to make you proud. So my challenge for you this week is to observe your interactions with children and your students and identify when your approaches are leaning more towards a theory X type of leadership and when your approaches are leaning more towards a theory Y leadership. And try to integrate far more theory Y approaches and then watch what happens by shifting that concept of being a parent, a teacher, or coach with a command-based mindset versus then shifting to a theory Y, which is more of a motivational encouragement type. You're going to notice that the children you work with or the children that you have tend to be more happy, as I mentioned, tend to be more responsible, be more confident, and be more self-motivated. So if you like this message, I encourage you, please share this with other parents, teachers, and coaches, and let's think big and teach bigger. Let's focus on making more deposits into children's brain banks versus withdrawals. Let's focus on building behavior by desire more than behavior by fear. And if you do so, you can change a child's life in bigger, more positive ways. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Melody Johnson Podcast. I hope you have a great day.